So our next and final ghost story of this Sense and Signal episode is the CEO and the Egregore. And so some context to this. This story comes out of an interview Joda and I did with an author a couple months ago. We interviewed him for the podcast about a new book that he was writing about a CEO he claims is deeply involved in the occult. And shortly after we did the interview, he disappeared, vanished. And his family said that, contacted us and said, can you please not release that episode? He's missing. We've been told by people that things might get worse for him if you release that episode. So, of course, we complied. We're a small podcast. Nobody listens to us. So we shelved the podcast. And but I felt like at the same time for this Halloween episode, I should share some of what he told us, just so it's on the record, because it might impact you, it might impact me, it definitely might impact the rest of the world if what this writer claims to be true is true. So he had told us that he's been working on a book, again, about a major CEO for a company, and I'm not going to say what CEO it is or what their initials are, EM. And I'm not going to share what country they're from, South Africa. And I'm not going to talk about any of the companies they lead. So you're not going to pry all that stuff out of me. And there could be legal consequences if I provide that information. Again, I don't want to get this writer in trouble. Now, according to this author, this idiosyncratic CEO has some deep ties to the occult. And he has been experimenting creating an egregore through social media. Now, what's an egregore, you ask? Well, an egregore is this esoteric concept. It comes from the occult and witchcraft and magic. And it describes a bodiless entity that people connect to and create with their minds by channeling their thoughts collectively into this entity. A metaphor that we could probably relate to is cloud computing. So if we had like a cloud in the sky of information and we were all plugged into it, sending information up into it, and it was sending information back down into us, we would be creating like a tech version of egregore. But this is really an occult, mystical version of that thing. And so it's a way to control large groups of people, because the egregore, as much as you are contributing to the egregore, eventually it's contributing to you, and it becomes like this feedback loop. So it's very cultish in its nature as well. So the author also wanted to we spent a substantial portion of our interview talking about the relationship between that and corporations, because corporations are a group of people who create a bodiless entity that's surrounded by certain ideas like missions and values and stuff like that, just like an egregore does, except it's more of a legal thing. It's like a legal designation about this group of people who are creating this collective thing. But there are overlapping aspects to these two things. And the author said that this CEO has actually turned many of his corporations or many of his businesses into egregores, blending the corporate side and the occultish side. And I'm not going to talk about any of his other businesses, Tesla, or, any of his companies, SpaceX. So don't ask me about that. So during the investigation, the author said that he interviewed several executives for the CEO, and that it's become a regular practice for them to go on the top of the office buildings that they inhabit late at night in black robes and red robes, and conduct these kind of Sabbaths or rituals or something or other where they try to connect to this egregore and have influence over it. That what they ultimately want to do through social media is to create a type of egregore that many people are connected to, that perceives the world to be such a chaotic and abysmal place, a place with where there's such lack of hope, where there is no hope. There's an absence of hope in the future, that people give up on this planet and decide to sign up for a space mission to Mars. And he's really hoping that he can do that through communicating through social media. Now, I questioned the writer about this and whether or not the CEO really had the power to influence millions of people, potentially billions of people, to want to leave this planet, this oxygen, filled with oxygen, because we're oxygen breathing people, to go to a carbon dioxide based planet. And he said, we are just at the beginning. This is just getting started. You're going to see much more atomization and breakdown in society if this CEO has his way. And so, being a leadership and sense-making podcast, I had to ask, well, how is he doing that? When they go up on the roofs of these corporate buildings and start performing these rituals, what do they look like? And he says it really involves them doing a lot of visualization, meditating and visualizing and channeling their visions into this egregore. Visions of decay and chaos, and how can we fuel the military industrial complex? How can we fuel the culture wars? How can we fuel all these divisions so we can drive people apart and make it seem like this world is no longer inhabiting, and to leave all this oxygen rich atmosphere and flee to a carbon dioxide based atmosphere? And he said they do this meditation and channeling and visualization, all to the music of Ziggy Stardust, which was weird and creepy, but that's what they do. And then I was like, well, how are they going to communicate all these ideas out to the people? How are they going to connect to them? And he said, it's very simple. It's the most simple thing. It's right in front of you all the time that they're communicating this discord to you. It's through memes, little memes passing here and there and everywhere. Memes, everywhere, with subliminal messages, reprogramming your minds until you don't even know that you've changed into a complete monster and you're ready to tear out the throat of anybody who disagrees with you, rip out their brains and eat their brains and consume their brains. And the whole world's going to go to complete chaos until everyone agrees this planet is no longer worth saving. We all need to go to Mars. And that's just what they're going to do. And then I asked, okay, well, that sounds pretty extreme that's going to happen. But what does the CEO get out of it? And he was like, oh, it's very simple. At the end of the day, the CEO is going to be driving around the world in his electric self-driving car, watching as nature reclaims the highways and parking lots and strip malls, and all this animal life comes back into the world. And he's going to point it all out to his robot wife and cyborg children and say, I created this. Well, it was a fascinating interview. I kind of thought at the time that the author was kind of cracked and making a lot of this stuff up, but that's what he told us. I thought the interview went well overall, and then a couple days later, he emailed, asked us to not publish the episode, warned us that some corporate goons were going to be snooping around and that we'd better be careful because, as he said, the algorithm has combined with the egregore and it knew what we were talking about. It knew about the episode and that it was going to come after us if we said anything about it. And just for my own protection, I didn't really delete his interview. I have it hidden away somewhere. So if something does happen to me, you know where to go looking for it. Or you might. I'll have some clues littered around the internet that you can search for to find where that interview episode went. So, yeah. So that is the end of our Sense and Signal Halloween episode. I hope you enjoyed some of these horrific, spooky tales about leadership and sense making. And tune in next week when we will come back at you with another scintillating episode where we tackle all things leadership and sense making on the Sense and Signal podcast. Take care, everybody.